My career did not begin collapsing with a cheerful notification sound. It began with paper. A single sheet slid out of the office printer in the hallway, face down, like it was ashamed to exist. I only noticed because the printer is usually as reliable as a politician at a lie detector test. And I was the only person still in the building who knew the ancient ritual for clearing a jam. I flipped the page over. Subject: Retire the Anchor, Winter Summit Talking Points. 2. Leadership Circle. Attachment: Carter underscore blocker, underscore deck, underscore final, V7. I stood there in the fluorescent hush, holding a printout that had my last name in the file title like a toe tag. I am Renee Carter, Senior Risk Controls Lead at Bramblelight Labs, a nimble software company that changes its mission statement more often than it changes the break room sponge. I have been here long enough to watch 3 rebrands, 2 mergers, and 1 doomed attempt at calling layoffs strategic pruning. I am not furniture. I am the bolt that keeps the chair from snapping and sending everyone into a lawsuit. So when I saw my name on a deck called Carter underscore blocker, my first thought was not fear. It was curiosity. The kind of curiosity that gets cats killed and compliance officers promoted. I walked back to my office, shut the door, and opened my laptop. Our internal chat app, Chirpline, blinked in the corner like a sleepy eye. I ignored it. I opened the shared drive and searched the file name. There it was, sitting in a folder labeled Summit Materials, visible to anyone with the link, because our new head of delivery excellence thought permissions were a vibe. The author line was not a mystery. It was Trent Barlow, my manager, freshly imported from some consulting firm where they teach people to speak in slogans and treat human beings like a spreadsheet error. Trent is the type who wears expensive sneakers with suits and calls it modern leadership. He smiles like he is practicing in a mirror, and he has been trying to peel me out of my role ever since I told him that his fast-track vendor onboarding plan was a beautiful shortcut to fines. I clicked the deck. Slide 1. A photo of a rusted anchor sinking into dark water. Title: Unmooring Bramblelight, Cutting Drag to Find Speed. Slide 2. My face, pulled from my employee profile, cropped so tightly it looked like a mugshot taken by someone with personal opinions. Slide 3. A chart of release velocity with a red line labeled Carter Review Delays. Slide 4. Fabricated timelines. Slide 5. A bullet list of phrases that made my jaw lock. Legacy mindset. Control addiction. Operational bottleneck. Risk team obstructionism. They were not planning to fire me quietly. They were planning a public roast at our annual Winter Summit soiree, the company's favorite tradition of pretending we are a family while serving shrimp that tastes like regret. I scrolled until I found the final slide. A title in bold: The New Era, Replacing Old Guard with Clean Speed. The notes section contained a line that did not belong in any professional setting unless the goal was to get punched. Make the dragon joke. They love that. Dragon. How original. Men like Trent always reach for medieval metaphors when they run out of actual accomplishments. My throat did the slow, heavy swallow it does right before something breaks. Not me. Something else. Something expensive. I saved the deck. Then I opened the printout's email header details. It had printed because Trent forwarded it to the wrong printer queue, the one still tied to the hallway machine near my office. The message was meant for Drew Maddox, a rising executive arriving soon, rumored to streamline departments like a butcher with ambition. I looked through the glass wall of my office. Across the open floor, Trent and his little orbit were still there, gathered near the snack station like vultures at a charcuterie board. Corey Vance, a junior growth tactician with confidence larger than his competence. Lila Henson, who speaks exclusively in corporate affirmations. They laughed, comfortable in the belief that I was already a headline they could write. I sat down and breathed out slowly. There are 2 kinds of people in this world: the ones who panic when they are cornered, and the ones who take inventory. I built the audit rails in Bramble-Light systems. I wrote the controls that track access, changes, approvals, and every clever little shortcut people take when they think nobody is watching. They had printed my name on a hunting license. They forgot I wrote the gun. The next morning arrived with the charm of a soggy cardboard box. Bramblelight's office had already been decorated for the Winter Summit soiree. Silver streamers, artificial pine scent, and a playlist of cheerful music that made me want to file a noise complaint with the universe. Everyone moved with the jittery happiness of people who believe morale is a substitute for ethics. I walked in wearing my usual armor, neutral blazer, flat shoes, and an expression that suggested I had better things to do than participate in group cheer. Trent called out from his glass office. "Renee, big week, yes? Excited for the summit soiree?" "Thrilled," I said, and kept walking. He smiled too widely. "Keep your evening open. There is a recognition segment. Leadership wants the full team present." Recognition segment. Corporate code for "We have prepared a stage." I sat at my desk and opened my work. Not the work they paid me for. The work they had demanded without realizing it. First stop, access logs for the system changes they claimed I had blocked. The deck accused me of delaying a critical deployment on a recent release week. I pulled the change management records and filtered by the ticket IDs shown in their slides. The most fascinating thing about a lie is how much it depends on the listener being lazy. The record did show an approval from my account. It even showed my name in bright, obedient letters, Renee Carter. But the timestamp was in the early morning. The kind of early morning when I am either asleep or bargaining with my coffee maker for mercy. I do not sign production approvals at that hour. I do not even send polite emails at that hour. I stare at walls and reevaluate my life. I open the device fingerprint tied to the approval. Not my workstation. Not my laptop. A different machine, logged as a conference room endpoint. The one used for leadership presentations. Someone had used my credentials from a machine I did not touch, at a time when I was at home, in pajamas, arguing with my cat about the concept of personal space. I did not need drama. I needed proof. Luckily, I am allergic to drama and addicted to evidence. 6 months earlier, I had quietly launched a pilot audit layer. Not public, not announced, just a silent guardian running behind the scenes. I called it Latchkey because it recorded not only what happened, but the behavioral signal of who did it. Typing cadence, mouse movement patterns, device proximity pings. I queried Latchkey for the approval event. The terminal responded like a judge sliding a verdict across the bench. User, Renee.Carter. Action, approved deployment ticket, 4412. Device, Confroom-Elm, proximity beacon, phone ID matched to Trent Barlow. My hands did not shake. My hands went still, which is worse for anyone on the other side of the truth. Trent had accessed the conference room endpoint. Trent's phone had been near the device when I approved a deployment. That deployment, according to incident logs, led to a messy outage later that day, the kind of outage executives like to describe as legacy fragility. They broke the system, signed my name under it, and then planned to blame my slow controls for the chaos they created. It was not just sabotage, it was choreography. I saved the latchkey output, encrypted it, and copied it to a secure evidence folder with a name so boring it could put a tax auditor to sleep. Q4 Controls Validation. Across the floor, Corey Vance was talking loudly about how friction is the enemy of innovation. I listened while I pulled his login activity. Corey's account had logged in from a residential network late at night. The address was not his. I know, because Corey never shuts up about living in a suburban complex with amenities. This address was downtown, high-rise territory. I cross-referenced it against our vendor database. It matched a consulting vendor we had onboarded recently, Parallax Harbor Group. Parallax Harbor had been pushed through in record time by Trent. I had raised concerns. Trent had smiled and called me thorough. Thorough is what you call someone when you are trying to insult them without leaving a paper trail. I pulled the vendor onboarding packet. It was suspiciously clean. Too clean. The signatures looked slightly off, like they were copied from somewhere else and pasted with the confidence of someone who thinks pixels are loyal. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with a strange, sharp delight. This was not about a petty humiliation at a party. This was about why they needed me gone before the wrong eyes looked too closely. I closed my laptop for a moment and stared at the office decorations. Glitter, tinsel, plastic joy. And underneath it, the soft, wet sound of fraud. If you want to find what people are hiding, do not chase the loud story they are selling. Follow the boring money they are moving. I spent the next day doing what Trent and Corey could never do, reading invoices, procurement notes, vendor onboarding checklists, the dull beige paperwork that people ignore because it does not sparkle, the dull beige paperwork that decides whether your company survives an audit. In the shared drive, I found a folder labeled Archive. It had been marked Hidden. Marking a folder hidden is the corporate version of putting sunglasses on a raccoon and pretending it is now invisible. Inside were PDF forms for Parallax Harbor Group, security assessments, privacy attestations, compliance sign-offs, all dated conveniently in the past. All signed with my name. I zoomed in on my signature. The edges were pixelated in a way my actual digital signature is not. It looked like someone had cut it out with kitchen scissors. I laughed once, quietly, because sometimes the universe throws you a gift, and you should say thank you. Then I stopped laughing and started collecting. I grabbed the metadata from the PDFs, the creator software, the edit history, the machine ID that generated them. Not my machine. I pulled procurement records for Parallax Harbor's billing. They were charging us a monthly strategy enablement retainer that could have funded a small space program. The line items were vague enough to qualify as abstract art. I traced the payment approvals. Approved by Trent Barlow. Of course. I searched in corporation records for Parallax Harbor Group. Public filings are wonderful because they do not care how charming your manager is. They just tell the truth in plain text. The registered agent, Marina Barlow. That last name is a funny thing. It tends to travel in packs. I opened Trent's public socials. People who post their lives publicly always believe the world is full of admirers, and none of them are investigators. I scrolled until I found a photo from a family dinner. Caption: Celebrating my mom, Marina, the real boss. There it was. Trent was funneling company money to a vendor tied to his mother, forging compliance paperwork to cover the onboarding, and using my credentials to create a blame trail in case anything blew up. They were not trying to remove a bottleneck. They were trying to remove a witness. I sat back, rolled my shoulders, and felt that cold, metallic calm settle in again. Most people assume revenge is hot and messy. Screaming, slamming doors, dramatic speeches in conference rooms. That is television revenge. Real revenge is quiet, structured, and formatted as an attachment. I needed a plan that did not rely on begging HR to do its job. HR exists to reduce liability, not to deliver justice. If I marched in early with evidence, they could label me disruptive, escort me out, and bury the problem before Drew Maddox had time to notice. No, I needed the kind of exposure that could not be folded into a private conversation, and I knew exactly where Trent planned to swing his axe. The Winter Summit soiree was being held off-site at a downtown venue, but the presentation system would be routed through our internal AV server for security. Trent's recognition segment would be run from a central display endpoint. I had built that endpoint's controls years ago, which meant I could add one small, elegant rule. I wrote a script and embedded it inside a legitimate monitoring service. It looked harmless. It sounded boring. It had a name that would not alarm anyone: Display Integrity Listener. In my head, I called it Velvet Guillotine. The logic was simple. If the conference display detected keywords from Trent's deck, it would trigger an automated severity alert and package my evidence bundle. It would not blast it to the whole party. I was not interested in collateral damage. I did not want interns reading about fraud while chewing on catered dessert. It would send the evidence to 4 recipients: General Counsel Head of People Operations, External Audit Liaison, Drew Maddox, Incoming Executive Leader. Subject line: Automated Controls Breach, Unauthorized Approvals, and Vendor Fraud. I tested it in a sandbox. It worked cleanly, like a trap snapping shut. Then I added the final flourish. If triggered, the display would freeze and show a single line in plain text. System hold. Integrity review in progress. Please stand by. Polite. Calm. Terrifying. I saved the deployment, locked it behind admin controls, and walked to the break room. Trent was there, pouring coffee like he owned the building and the laws of physics. "Big night soon," he said. "Ready to celebrate progress?" I smiled, small and neat. "I love progress, Trent, especially when it is measurable." He laughed like I had made a joke. He had no idea he was standing on a stage I had built beneath his feet. On the day of the Winter Summit soiree, the office behaved like it had been possessed by festive spirits and poor judgment. People wore sweaters that blinked. Someone brought a speaker and played music that sounded like a mall trying to hypnotize shoppers into buying candles. Corey Vance strutted around in a blazer that was aggressively confident, like it had never heard the word consequence. I did not contribute. I did my work, moved my mouse occasionally, and waited. Late afternoon, a junior engineer named Owen Pike hovered at the edge of my desk like a nervous question. "Renee," he said quietly, eyes darting. "I saw the run sheet for the soiree." "I have always dreamed of being on a run sheet," I replied. He did not smile. "They are going to make it ugly. They are calling it Old Ways, New Winds. They have slides about you." I kept my face smooth. "That seems like an odd use of catering." "Do not go," he whispered. "Get sick. Say you have an emergency." I looked at Owen and felt a brief softness. He was a decent kid in a building full of people who treated decency like a hobby. "Thank you," I said. "You did a kind thing." "So you will not go?" "Oh, I will not be in the room," I said gently. "But I will be present." He blinked, confused, then scurried away as Trent appeared across the floor, like a man who could smell control. As the office emptied for people to change and travel to the venue, I packed my bag as if I was leaving for a storm shelter. Laptop, evidence drive, a worn notebook full of the kinds of notes that make lawyers sit up straight. At home, I set up my quiet command center on the kitchen table. 2 monitors, secure connection, a live tail on the display server logs. My cat, Juniper, watched with the uninterested judgment of someone who pays no rent, yet rules the house. The internal chirpline channels started filling with photos from the venue, smiling faces, shiny decorations, drinks held up like trophies. Trent posted a selfie near the stage with the caption, "Big momentum tonight, time to honor the future." I sipped water and stared at the logs. Then the system showed the presentation file loading. Old ways underscore new wins underscore V9. The slide advancement began. 1, 2, 3. Intro fluff. My heart did not race. My heart waited. Slide 5. Keyword detection fired. Latchkey's companion display listener triggered instantly, like it had been insulted. Trigger condition met. Executing integrity package. The evidence bundle compiled and sent. 1 email, 4 recipients, attachments neatly labeled. The kind of neatness that makes liars sweat. The display froze, and then the message appeared, exactly as designed. System hold. Integrity review in progress. Please stand by. Chirpline went quiet for a moment, then erupted. What is happening? Is this a prank? Why is the screen locked? Trent looks like he swallowed a battery. On the server logs, I watched frantic activity. Trent attempted to force close the display. Denied. Corey attempted to reboot the endpoint. Denied. Multiple login attempts. Rejected. Then came the funniest part. The system required an executive authorization code to override an active integrity hold. That code request would be popping up on Drew Maddox's phone, meaning Trent, mid-performance, would have to ask the incoming leader for permission to shut off the screen accusing him of fraud. It was a beautifully self-destructive loop. I watched the email delivery confirmations. Opened by General Counsel. Opened by People Operations. Opened by External Audit Liaison. And then the one that mattered most. Opened by Drew Maddox. I exhaled slowly, like someone setting down a heavy box. The trap did not need applause. It did not need me in a ballroom. It did not need a confrontation scene with dramatic lighting. It needed only one thing: Trent's arrogance projected on a screen, and he had provided that, enthusiastically. Monday morning felt like walking into a building after a storm. Everything technically intact, but the air changed. The holiday decorations were still up. Streamers hung like exhausted flags. The cheerful playlist had been replaced by the subtle sound of people not knowing who to look at. The seats in Trent's little orbit were empty. Not out sick empty. Not working remote empty. Sanitized empty. No personal mugs. No blinking keyboard toys. No smug little desk plaques about hustle. Just docking stations and the pale outlines where confidence used to sit. People watched me as I walked past, like I was a safety manual that had learned to speak. I sat down, opened my inbox, and found what I expected. Meeting request from legal. Meeting request from people operations. Evidence preservation notice. And one message flagged urgent from Drew Maddox's assistant. Please come by this morning. I walked to the executive corridor. The door to Drew's office was closed, and for once the hallway felt like it understood the concept of consequences. Drew Maddox was tall, sharply dressed, and calm in the way that suggests he has watched entire departments disappear without raising his voice. He gestured to a chair without smiling. "Renee Carter," he said, looking at a printed stack of documents. My documents, my logs, my beautifully unglamorous proof. "Yes," I replied. "I spent the weekend reading," he said. "I have not enjoyed reading that much in years." "I apologize for the entertainment," I said. His mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Trent Barlow is terminated for cause. There will be referrals. Parallax Harbor Group is under investigation. Accounts are frozen. Hardware is seized." I nodded once, because nodding is what you do when the truth is finally being treated like the truth. "They tried to present you as the problem," Drew continued, tapping the stack. "A slowdown. A blocker." "They confuse brakes with obstacles," I said. "Brakes keep you from driving into a lake." Drew leaned back. "Agreed. Here is what I need now. I do not need a risk lead. I need someone who can rebuild internal controls and enforce them without flinching." He slid a folder across the desk. A new title, a new reporting line, a salary number that would make my mortgage breathe easier. Director of Integrity Systems, reporting directly to Drew Maddox. I did not gasp. I did not cry. I did not do anything that could be used later as a tone concern. I opened the folder, scanned it, and closed it. "One condition," I said. Drew raised an eyebrow, as if amused by the concept of employees having spines. "I want latchkey formalized," I said. "No more quiet pilots, mandatory auditing for every department, no special exemptions for people with expensive sneakers." Drew's mouth twitched again. "Done." I stood, shook his hand, and felt something rare settle into place. Not joy, satisfaction. The building did not feel friendly on the way out of his office. It felt cleaner, like a stain had finally been scrubbed out of carpet that never deserved it. Back at my desk, there was one last file I opened privately. A short audio clip captured during a high-risk approval event. Trent's voice, low and confident, talking to someone nearby. Once Carter is out, the whole place moves faster, he said. People like her never see it coming. Then a laugh. Corey's laugh. Bright. Empty. I listened once, then deleted it. I did not need souvenirs. I had results. Outside my office, the team worked quietly. Nobody joked about drag or anchors. They moved carefully, suddenly aware that systems remember. I looked at the decorations still hanging in the ceiling corners and thought, not unkindly, that it was fitting. The company had wanted a celebration. It got an audit. And I got something better than revenge served hot. I got revenge served documented, time-stamped, and impossible to ignore.